Good morning, everybody. My name is Mike Kinman. My pronouns are he, him. I'm the rector here at All Saints Church. Welcome to the Rector's Forum. A special welcome to everyone who is streaming us. You can turn around, everybody, and wave at the camera. Say hello to everybody. Just have some really quick announcements before we get started. First is, if you are new to All Saints Church, any way that you would describe it, you found your way into our orbit this morning. So glad you're here. We have some green contact sheets at the door. Would love to have you sign that so we can be in touch with you and be in conversation with you about this wonderful community. You might know that Christmas Eve is coming. We've got great stuff going on here. We have a service at 3 o'clock, which is a really amazing pageant. 5:30, 8:30, 11 o'clock. I think I'm getting those times right. You might want to check the website. But really, it's just extraordinary. I hope you'll be with us not just today, but all week in this community. The restrooms are just around the corner and to the right. Exits are here and here. Also, we always put our faith into action here at All Saints Church. And each week, we pick one thing to focus our action on as a community. This Sunday at our action table, which is up on the lawn, we invite you to sign a letter to your member of the House of Representatives, thanking them for defending the Constitution and rule of law by carrying out the investigation of President Trump's actions and going through the constitutional process of impeachment. And we want to thank them for doing that. And there's a special card for Adam Schiff to sign to Adam Schiff to thank him for the integrity with which he has done his job as chair of the Senate Intelligence, or the House Intelligence Committee. So please clap and also go upstairs and sign that. Thank you so much. Thank you for the incredible generosity you show in so many ways to All Saints Church. We would be honored if you would choose to make a special gift for Christmas to All Saints to help keep things like this happening all year round. So thank you, thank you, thank you. It is an honor and a thrill to have with us today Adi Barkan. Adi is the co-founder of the Be a Hero PAC and an organizer for the Center for Popular Democracy. Adi has been an activist lawyer for a while and a couple of years ago was diagnosed with ALS, with Lou Gehrig's disease, right after the birth of his first child. He's been called the most powerful activist in America. And he has been a huge voice and continues to be a huge voice of the absolute right of health care for all people. He's also a past attendee of Sequoia School here in Pasadena, and it's wonderful to have some folks. Josh Brody is the head of school, and Shari Majumdar, who was one of his 5th grade teachers, who is here with us. So please can we welcome the folks from Sequoia. And it's always great to have Brad Whitford here. You know Brad from his many appearances in TV and movie and his past here at All Saints Church. Mostly, Brad is here because Adi is someone who has transformed and is continuing to transform his life. And so Brad is dedicating the chance to use his voice to amplify his. And so Brad, it's great having you here also. And then I think we're going to start off. We've got a little video teaser to start off with, and then Brad's going to read a little bit of Adi's book, and then we're going to dive in. So you want to get us going, Josh? Thanks.
I think you're supposed to be filming anything on the airplane. I don't know.
Just before we met, I had seen Jeff Flake get onto the plane, and you said, "Should I talk to him?" I said, "Yeah." And you said, "Can you film it?" And I was like, "Yeah."
My next guest made headlines when he confronted a Republican senator on an airplane.
You can be an American hero.
Adi Barkan.
Adi Barkan.
Adi Barkan.
I want to have a chance to tell the story about my friend Adi Barkan.
We rolling? I slipped over, sorry. Yeah, we forgot, like any good husband, I forgot that today is our 1-year anniversary since we were married. It's really been 11 years that we've been together. Our 11th anniversary on September 30th was our last night before we got the first preliminary suggestion that something was really wrong.
Adi had been having these issues with his left hand.
I thought I had carpal tunnel syndrome.
I was like, oh, let me just check your reflexes. That was when the red flags started going. And cancer, I know is a scary thing, but in my mind, cancer was not scary compared to what it could be.
I was diagnosed with ALS today, which is a deadly, debilitating disease for which there is no cure. And I feel like so much is being ripped away from me. So much love and so much good time that I thought I had left. Although I am so sad and so scared, I really, really want to make the best of what I have left.
So I take this video of Adi and Jeff Flake that not only went viral, but took over CNN, MSNBC, and then led us to do a massive protest and get arrested.
Since then, Barkan has been busy lobbying members of Congress against that Republican tax bill.
All right, I'm gonna knock on your door. Senator, I'm dying of a brain disease. Why are you running away from me?
Did you just get out of jail? Are you going to keep protesting on Monday?
Yeah.
Adi said, well, what if we travel the country and do this? And then I ridiculously was like, yeah, okay, let's go. The idea was to travel and to stop in each of these districts. If they voted to cut healthcare for people like Adi, we would replace them. 22 states in 40 days with a guy in a wheelchair, no nurse, and a couple of friends. It's like a really bad sitcom.
Can you tell me why she voted for the tax bill?
I need you guys to lose property.
We're not going to have any press or media.
Why not?
I'm here to ask my representative to consider the people in Iowa.
People will die because of the way that he votes.
Everybody deserves to be able to go to the doctor when they're sick. What kind of a country is this? So we can't do that.
It's time to step up. And if he can do it across this entire country, it's like, all right, well, I have no excuse.
I am willing to give my last breath. What are you willing to give?
Some observers would say that you're exploiting his disease.
Absolutely. Absolutely. This is fucking crazy what we're doing. It's so powerful, but like you could also be killing somebody faster.
If you recognize Adi's name, it's because he's been fighting like hell for his life and for all of ours. I'm sure your son is incredibly proud of you.
I can transcend the struggles of my daily life by being here with people who share my vision for a better society. And that's the beauty of democracy.
On Monday, I stood in front of your office with Annie Barker.
That together we can be more than the sum of our parts, and we can be more than our individual selves.
Thank you. I'm just going to read 2 sections from the book. I hope I can get through it. I want to just register a specific moment that the personal cost of all this, and a little section about spirituality. In the evening before putting Carl to bed, we Skyped with my father and stepmother in New York. I'm not going to be able to get through this. Rachel and I sat on the sofa next to each other and pointed the camera toward Carl, who was playing on the floor mat with toys hanging above him. He could hold them in 2 hands now and was becoming a master at tummy time push-ups. Watching him, my father laughed and exclaimed with joy. And seeing him laugh, I thought to myself, these are the last minutes of unadulterated joy that you will ever have. After today, you will be sad every day, and your happiness will always be tentative and constrained and inhibited. These are the words you think to yourself before you break your father's heart. Finally, we mustered the courage to turn the camera away from Carl to ourselves. Never in my wildest nightmares did I anticipate having to deliver news like this, but here we are. Here we were. Like ripping off a Band-Aid, we told them about my diagnosis, that my life expectancy was 2 to 5 years, that there was no good treatment or cure. They were predictably shocked. Oh no, my stepmother gasped repeatedly, unsure of what else to say. I wish it could be me instead of you, my father said through his tears. On a lighter note, what about you, Adi? Jai Ching asked. Where do you find your spirituality and your deepest truths? I thought for a while and then started to cry. The election was a week away. Democracy, I realized. That was where I found my first principles. The notion that we should order our world based on decisions that we make together, that our fate as individuals is tied inexorably to the fate of others, that political struggle is timeless, essential, and liberating. This, I realized, was my religious conviction. This was my secular faith. As I struggled to convey my answer to Ayana and Jai Ching intelligibly, I realized how much of my life and how many of my choices this answer explained. More than anything else, I had spent my career in pursuit of a more just and equitable democracy because I understood now it was what I believed in most deeply. I think I wanted to read that because about 20 years ago, I heard George Regas say, politics is the way you create your moral vision. And that has stuck with me. Yeah. Anyway, let's talk.
Come on over. So, yeah. So, am I up? Am I up, Josh? There we go. So, first of all, thank you for that. A couple things. First of all, I don't know if I can say this. I don't know if we have enough books, but you can order them online. Don't leave this place without this book. This is an extraordinary book. There's a table over there full of the books. You can actually get the audio book that has Brad reading it, so you can get that off of Audible or another source. Get this book and read it. And second thing I want to say is about tears, which is, I mean, first of all, if you can't cry in church, where can you cry? This is where we're supposed to come to be human. Second thing is, we've gotten in our heads that tears are about weakness. Tears are the beginning of healing, and tears are the beginning of justice. Tears show that something has touched us enough that it has identified the piece of us that's human and the thing that we care enough about to do something about. So never apologize for your tears, never apologize for any of our tears. And Adi, it is an honor to have you here, and it would be an honor to have you here anyway. It's especially an honor because you got to prepare for an interview a little harder than most people have to prepare for an interview. This remarkable chair that you have lets you speak through a screen that you pick letters and words through where your eye is looking. And that takes time and that takes energy. And first of all, I just want to say thank you so much for giving the gift of that time and energy. And also to let you know that the questions that we're talking about, I gave you in advance, so you had some time to prepare things. And depending on how we go, if we get to some Q&A, it'd probably be a little different than we're used to having in here. So first of all, welcome. As I read the book and as I listened to the book, what struck me repeatedly were the paradoxes and the tensions that run throughout the story. And there's a couple of those I'd actually like to spend some time exploring. And the first really is about time. You have your whole life to make an impact, and you always think there's going to be time, and then you find out your whole life, well, it might be a lot shorter than you thought. And I'd love to hear about what your diagnosis did to your concept of time, the value of time, and how you approach it in your life.
Thank you, Reverend Mike, for hosting this forum. It's wonderful to be here with you, especially at this time of year. And I am really grateful to you, Brad, for your friendship and for organizing this event. I was diagnosed with ALS in October 2016. It's been 3 years, but it feels like a lifetime. The era before ALS seems incredibly distant, ancient almost. As I wrote in the memoir, Rachel and I were living a perfect life with our infant son and 2 fulfilling jobs in beautiful Santa Barbara. And then this diagnosis came like a lightning bolt from the clear blue sky. I was told that ALS would paralyze me and deprive me of the ability to breathe within 3 to 4 years. And it has. Predictably, the diagnosis made me feel like I had very little time to do what I wanted. We tried at first to squeeze in some trips to Utah and Baja and Italy. But my main focus was on trying to enjoy the time that I had left, on making it meaningful. And that wasn't easy, because I was depressed. I was grateful in those early weeks and months that I didn't have many regrets. Certainly, I had wasted too many hours surfing the net instead of reading good books. But overall, I was happy with the big choices I had made in life. I was happy with how I had spent my time. But after the diagnosis, I found it hard to enjoy anything, to think about anything other than my anger and misfortune. I grappled pretty furiously with my inability to control my mind. And I ultimately found solace in the moment. In focusing on what was immediately in front of me, not 6 or 12 months in the future. I began to practice a bit of meditation. On that trip to Utah, when I was crying through the gorgeous national parks, Rachel urged me to be like our 5-month-old baby, Carl. Stay in the moment. Look at the rocks and the colors. They have been here for so long. Millennia worth of humans have been born and died here, admiring these formations. Eons worth of reptiles and dinosaurs. We are made of stars and we return to dust in the blink of an eye. Our civilizations will fall. But these rocks will remain. Ultimately, that was where my consciousness settled. That although our lives are infinitesimally small in the history of the world, they are all we have. They are infinitely important to us. And that this moment, right here, is worth cherishing.
Just take a second. Thank you. I love that in the video clip we saw this transition that is happening in your life, and it's happening on so many different levels. And part of it is your voice. We heard the voice you were born with here, and we hear the voice that you have now. And again, one of the paradoxes is you have found your voice in a new way, even as you're transitioning from one voice to another. One of the things you wrote about in the book that just really grabbed me as a parent is your children never hearing your physical voice from you again. And yet they and so many others of us are hearing your voice that might never have. I wonder if you can talk a little bit about your understanding of your voice, the power of voice, the responsibility to use our voices, and how the gift of having voice, how all those things have evolved for you.
Let me start my answer by rereading a short excerpt from the book, which Bradley shared. It's in the form of a diary entry, from during a road trip we took before the midterms last year. Late at night, July 21, 2018. Koa Holiday Campground, Lebanon, Ohio. We are in my old stomping grounds, the conservative suburbs of Cincinnati, where I came for my first job after college to try to help Democrats win back the House. I'm here again a dozen years later with the same purpose. Vic Volson, my erstwhile candidate, came to my breakfast event this morning. Unlike me, she hasn't aged. We forgot to bring my headset and portable amplifier, and my audience of 30 had great difficulty hearing me, until one proactive grandma had the good sense to unplug the whirring commercial refrigerator in the corner. Now I lie in my recliner, totally stoned and totally clear-eyed. There is no escaping the reality of what is happening to my voice. Every week it is less audible and less intelligible. Every week more people are staring at me blankly, asking me to repeat myself. Or, worst of all, pretending they've understood. Losing my ability to speak is far worse than losing my ability to walk or type. Ever since I was an only child holding forth at the dinner table to an audience of professors, I've been enamored by my own voice, enchanted by the prospect that others would be persuaded by the force of my rhetoric. And now, at 34, I am losing my greatest power. For 20 years, since I was a freshman in high school, I have been writing op-eds and giving timed, first on the debate team and at thespian festivals, later at press conferences and in community organizing meetings. But never before have I felt so acutely the constraining force of my word count limit. I know intuitively how many arguments I can fit into 800 words. I know when my 3 minutes are up, even without looking at my watch. But now, facing my final months of speech, the questions that I was taught to ask in high school have taken on new meaning. What do I want to say? To whom? And how? So, Reverend Mike, the first thing I will say is that I am profoundly grateful for the eye gaze computer technology that is allowing me to speak with you right now. For some mysterious reason, ALS paralyzes all of the muscles in the body except for those of the eye. So this technology tracks the location of my pupils and allows me to write and speak through this machine. I am not a technology enthusiast or booster generally, but by giving me a voice, this technology is genuinely life-saving. Losing the ability to speak quickly has been very painful, especially because I want to have so many conversations with Carl. But he is 3, and patience isn't his strong suit. So I have to pick my words carefully. And I have to accept a different mode of interacting with the world. For example, I needed you to send me these questions in advance, so I could prepare answers. And although we can have a little back and forth here, we can't have the deeper engagement that I would cherish. It has certainly been the great irony of my life that as I have lost my ability to speak, more and more people have heard my voice. That's part of the drama, I suppose. My sense has always been that we have an ethical duty to use our voices to promote justice, and to speak on behalf of the voiceless, or even better, to empower them with more decibels, so they can speak loudly for themselves. One of the central ways that ALS changed my advocacy was that I started talking about myself more, using our family's story as an example of what is wrong with the American healthcare system. So my struggle, our struggle, has become very public. It is performative, in the sense that we have blurred the line between public and private. And in a sense, that has helped us cope with the disease. We're sharing the emotional burden with all of you.
I want to say one of the gifts I feel that the way your voice is inviting us into is normally there's like 10 things that you just said that I would want to jump and go back and forth. And instead it's inviting me and maybe us in just a place for a minute just to sort of sit and think about what you've just said. One of probably my favorite part of the video is when, I forget who it is who's being interviewed.
Liz Jaff.
Yeah, you know the part I'm talking about. And says, what do you say to people who say that you're exploiting this illness? And she says, absolutely. And yeah, what you've done is masterful. You have masterfully used a degenerative illness. And this is an illness that is literally taking away your body's power to function. And you're using it to give the phrase power to the people new meaning. I'd love to hear you talk about your evolution of the understanding of power and the power that we have together. And, got these shirts. I love this. Be a hero and give to the Be a Hero pack. What does it mean when you challenge us to be a hero and use our power?
The phrase be a hero comes from my conversation with Senator Jeff Flake on the airplane, when I pleaded with him to be an American hero by voting against the Trump tax scam. Flake, unfortunately, was an example of someone who was willing to use his voice against Trump but not use his greater power, his vote. So, since then I have been asking Americans to be heroes, by which I mean becoming organizers on behalf of our democracy. This goes back to the question of time, and how we should best use this scarce resource in this heady moment. I have been urging folks to strengthen our democracy by engaging your friends and neighbors, co-workers, and family, pulling them into civic participation, asking that they too become protagonists in this experiment in self-governance that we are conducting. Heroic action in this sense means using the power that each of us do have. And the special thing about democracy is that our collective power is far greater than the sum of our individual powers. Democracy is about achieving our common objectives through concerted collective action, and through group decision-making. And so being a hero means leveraging our individual power into something bigger, by tying our destinies together, tying my strength to yours and hers and his. I think my battle with ALS has taught me that power can come from unlikely sources. I would of course instantly trade my newfound political power for the physical power that the disease has stolen from me. But I want my story to be something more than tragedy. My hope has been that by throwing myself into democratic participation despite my obstacles, I can encourage others to do the same. And the surprising lesson for me, the thing I wasn't expecting, is that participating in popular democracy is a rejuvenating, healing experience. Like coming to church, I suppose, being part of a political community means being part of something greater than ourselves. It means escaping the limitations of our individual bodies and souls, and connecting to a spirit and a lineage much older and more powerful, and one that will live on long past any of us.
Just for a second, Brad, I want to turn to you. How did you get connected with Adi, and how does his sense of use of our political power and engaging the political system, where does that resonate with you? And talk about your relationship.
I think after the Flakes on a Plane thing, I forget who reached out to who, but we ended up doing an action on behalf of the Dreamers at Senator Feinstein's office. And I just fell in love with Adi immediately. Anybody who says, put the guy with, there were like Nazis. And Adi said, you gotta put the guy with ALS out front, make him hit the guy in the chair. So I fell in love with him immediately. I also, the more I learned about Adi, he was somebody pre-ALS who was living that thing that understood that politics is the way you create your moral vision. And I sometimes get frustrated because, ironically, for all the hypocrisy on the right about small government, I've been thinking for about 20 years, we can learn something from them. They understand that politics is the way you create your moral vision. We think it's something else. Sometimes we think it's what I do. We think it's culture. But culture won't help you if you have a pre-existing condition. And will and grace is fantastic, but you got to get the Supreme Court if you want marriage equality. So he was embodying something that I really believed, he has, I don't know if you're aware, but sometimes they build religions around people who transcend their suffering with a message of radical inclusion and a call to action. And he was also really funny.
Yeah.
So.
That's great. Yeah. Oh, wow. So just have one more question. Thank you. And it was a final paradox. It's actually something you wrote about in the epilogue to your book. And it's the paradox of the Serenity Prayer. And I want to read a piece from the epilogue. You write, "Every day since my diagnosis, I have struggled to know what to accept and what to resist. The Buddhist philosophers who got me through those devastating first months taught me to leave the mode of doing and enter the mode of being, to accept things as they are rather than yearning for them to be otherwise. Such radical acceptance is in tension with my identity as a movement builder. Being part of a progressive movement is about fighting back and building toward a better future. Acceptance is not a part of our vocabulary. To resolve this tension, I often return to Reinhold Niebuhr's Serenity Prayer, which asks for the serenity to accept what I cannot change, the courage to change what I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. I have come to accept that my ALS is progressing faster than average, that my body is wasting away quickly, and that what I have today will soon be gone. There is a paradox embedded in the third part of Niebuhr's prayer, because the wisdom to know the difference between what we can and cannot change can only be earned through struggle. Neuroscientists seek a cure for ALS because they do not accept its inevitability. Organizers rage against the machines of capitalism with that same determination. It is only by refusing to accept the complacency of previous generations that the impossible becomes reality. For me, Niebuhr's prayer is most true if rearranged. Collective courage must come first, wisdom second, and serenity only at the very end. So can you talk a little about what you are learning about that balance between struggle and fight and acceptance and serenity? What would you say to us as All Saints Church? We say we follow a God of revolutionary love. What would you say to all of us gathered here about the role and struggle and acceptance in our life and in the life of this nation, and about our need to be heroes and beacons of collective courage and wisdom?
Thank you for this question. I dictated that passage to my assistant a year ago, at the end of 2018. In the interim, I have lost my ability to speak, and to eat, and to drink. And although I can still breathe on my own for a few hours a day, it takes a lot of work, so I spend almost all my time hooked up to a ventilator that does the breathing for me. Which is all to say that I have lost a lot in 2019. Knowing and accepting that these losses were coming certainly eased their arrival. And 2019 has delivered other developments as well. Most important, early in the year we found out that Rachel was pregnant, and our patience was rewarded 5 weeks ago by the arrival of our daughter, Willow Simone King. She is a gift, and it is a different use of the word to say that we have accepted her into our lives with open arms. There is no formula for knowing what to accept and what to resist. There is no roadmap to tell us where to go and how to lead our lives. Indeed, there often isn't even a road. We make the road by walking. Or, if we can't walk, we do it by rolling. Baby Willow has brought with her tremendous joy and love. But she has also highlighted for me just how great the gap is between the father I am and the father I want to be. I cannot comfort her like I did so easily Carl 3.5 years ago. The parenting duties fall to Rachel, and I am often relegated to the status of observer. It is difficult to accept. A friend of mine, a rabbi in Minneapolis, wrote to me recently. He shared with me one of his favorite biblical exegeses, which he said had served as a valuable salve in his most difficult hours. This is what he wrote. The first time Moses schlepped up the mountain to receive the 10 Commandments, he returned to the people having built the golden calf. In a fit of rage, he smashed the tablets. We know he calmed down, returned up the mountain, and brought back a second set of commandments. But the rabbis wondered, what happened to the first, shattered set of stone tablets? After much rabbinic debate, as was their wont, they determined, Moses and the people gathered the broken shards of the first set and carefully placed them into the ark with the second, whole, intact set. The broken and the whole, carried together, throughout the desert. I pray, my friend, that as ALS continues to shatter your body, you are able, somehow, with wisdom and strength beyond our understanding, to carry the broken shards alongside the wholeness of you. And that, I think, is our task. Our commandment. We are members of a democratic society facing the dual existential threats of fascism and climate catastrophe. And yet we must proceed through the desert. We must carry our broken shards along with our wholeness. Our children will inherit our world, and they will remember how we acted in these momentous times. So I am grateful to have been here with you this morning. I'm grateful to be in fellowship and in common struggle with communities like this across the country and the world. And I am looking forward to more resistance and more acceptance in the new year.
So I want to say, in our tradition, you just preached one hell of a Christmas sermon right there. Because that is all about God entering into our life in our most broken places and being about healing and transformation and not running away from those spots. Yeah, what an incredible gift. Is there anything more you want to add?
I want to emphasize the heroicism of Rachel King.
Here?
She's there.
Yeah. Oh, there, yeah. Rachel's right back there.
And Willow is here. And I want to acknowledge Audie's mom and stepdad.
Are they here?
Who are here. And remind everybody that if this guy going through this can do as much as he is doing, we are not doing enough.
Mm-hmm. So, you know, one of the things that really, again, it captivates me is the whole concept of being a hero, because we tend to think heroes are other people. And heroes are each one of us if we lean into the circumstances that are put before us. And that's what you have done, and that's what you are doing. And of course, the trap in all this is we've come here today and we've heard you and you have inspired us. And the trap we could fall into is to say, wow, what an incredible human being Adi Barkan is. And part of the trap is that it's right. And the truth is, like you talked before about adding more decibels to people. And part of what you have tried to do so much is take people who are on the margins and amplify them with your voice, but also point the camera to them. And for us to think about how can we do that? You have given us so much to think about today. You have inspired us so much. And each one of us, it's like the mic check that you talked about at Occupy Wall Street. If each of us could take what we have heard from you today and go out and shout it out there. We got some guy shouting on the sidewalk right now out there. And he's shouting some stuff that is out of pain and that is deeply wounding to people. And if we can take what we have learned in here and do a mic check and go out in the world and broadcast it and shout it and love it to a world that needs to hear it, and get on the phone and call our senators and representatives and use this process that we have to make the change that we need, because people are literally dying because we don't have it. And so I hope that we can find a time in 2020 when you can come back here, and now that we've been introduced, we can have the what's next conversation and really look at what we can all do together to be heroes in this work.
Thank you, it's been an honor. I would like that.
Thank you. Everybody, Adi Barkan.
Thank you all. Get a book.
Buy the book. Buy the book.